Legs.
Nostrils?
Wait, so what did we go over? What was it? Anyone? What was it? Starts with an H, S, and M.
Heart, soul, and
That's fine.
Nice.
That's fine. That's fine.
Heart, soul, and mind.
Heart, soul, and mind, Matthew 22:37. And Jesus said to him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. We're going to be talking about that a little bit, breaking it down, and how that relates to worship. Because it's really important. So, heart, week one. I talked about it. It was a video. It was up here. I wasn't here live. Wish I was, but wasn't. Anyways, we talked about the heart. I talked about the heart. How the heart in Proverbs refers to the center of one's inner life, right? It is from the heart that a person does all thinking, feeling, and choosing. From it, all things flow. Talking about surrendering to Him, surrendering our heart, surrendering our hurts, the things that hold us back in our heart, the things that harden our heart, the things that, I don't know, we put walls up with God, not so He can't penetrate our heart, right? So we talked about that a little bit. We talked about Psalm 57:7, which says, "My heart is confident in You, O God. My heart is confident. No wonder I can sing Your praises," right? So we talked about that, how the heart is really important when it comes to worship. That it starts in the heart. You don't worship with your heart, or you don't worship with your hands. You worship with your heart, right? It starts there. That was really important. Aaron broke down the soul. He talked about the word nephesh. Does anyone remember what that means?
No, I wasn't here.
I thought I heard that.
Or was I?
Wait, Solomon, did you say it?
I thought I heard that before.
Nephesh? Oh, that was hype.
Or was I?
Anyone remember?
I
Your
was
toes.
I wasn't here, but my twin
Here,
brother was.
It's about the soul.
My twin brother was here.
It's Hebrew.
Toes.
It's not about toes.
I heard mine.
It is, here, I'll say it for you. It's all good. Nephesh is the inner linings of your being that can't be proven to be real. He related this to Genesis 2:7, which says, "Then the Lord formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living creature." So we talked about how the soul makes us real, makes us feel, makes us complex and deep. We're more than just animals, that we can have relationships with people, we can, form connections, and, we have to deal with our emotions, and that's really what the soul is all about. I really like this definition. It says the soul is the seat of your personality, your feelings, desires, and affections. Quite simply, your soul is the birthplace of the entire spectrum of human emotion. When the Bible references your soul, it is referring to it is referring that which influences your emotional responses to life. So our soul is really important because if we give our soul to God, that means we gotta give him control, right? We gotta give him control of our emotions, what affects us, our entire being. Centering him in our life means we obey his teachings, and that has to do by surrendering our soul to him. Then, week 3, Aaron talked about the mind. The mind being a very complex place, really the birth of action, if you think about it, that our thoughts lead to action, good or bad, that we can have good or bad thoughts. In Greek, it talks about a lot, that the origin of the mind, it talks about willpower, right? So our mind being a place where our willpower is generated, where we execute our actions, starts in the mind. That's why Romans 12:2 is really important. So remember, Aaron talked about that, and it says, "Do not conform of the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind." So our minds are really key when it comes to transformation, when it comes to change, because it's through our renewal of our mind that we transform with Jesus, right? That we change. So it's key to living out that truth, and it's key to that transformation. That's why it is really important what we feed our mind, what we feed our soul, what we feed our heart, because that can all have an impact on how we worship him, or if we worship him, right? 1 Peter 5:8, "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, waiting for someone to devour." So we always got to be on our guard, right? We got to be careful what we feed ourselves. So, how does this relate to worship? What does it have to do with worship? Well, I wanted to ask you guys first, how would you define worship? What's worship look like? I don't know. What is it? What's worship?
Prayer.
Prayer? Sure. more than that? What's up, Sean?
Fight with all your might.
Sure. Giving all you got, fight with their mind. What else is worship? Any ideas? Any thoughts?
Reading the Bible.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure. When I think of worship, I tend to think of singing. And like people like up in the front of the church, songs are playing, hands up, worshiping God, right? That's what worship looks like to me. At least the first thought when I think of it. But worship by definition of the Bible is really just like an honor or like a glory, right? You're adoring, a lot of people say like fear of the Lord, right? And for me, I didn't really know what that meant. But like fear, just like respecting the Lord completely, surrendering everything to Him. So when it comes to worship, I think it's really important that the soul, mind, and heart obviously need to be a part of that. In Psalms 95:6, David is talking about prayer. He says, "Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord, our Maker." I think this is really key because getting your heart, mind, and soul in line with the Lord usually starts with a surrender of some sort. It starts with saying, hey, I'm going to put you number one, and even literally, physically, bowing to Him, right? Like if you're bowing, if you're kneeling to Him, just physically, just like saying, hey, kneeling, like just that physical action, you're not number one, right? A more power position is you standing, someone's above you, I don't know, So having the Lord be above you, this verse is really symbolic because it usually requires a sacrifice. It requires a surrender. It requires, giving up something, changing in some way. So for me, a big change for me was what kind of music I listen to. Because I like rap. I still do. I don't know. Rap is cool. Anyone like rap? Woo! Hey, that's funny. That's what's up. And that's not a bad thing. But I think I invested too much time into it. Like I would listen to my boy Kendrick Lamar, or J. Cole, or I don't know. Who else is big? Anyone, I don't know, Jay-Z. He was cool for a minute. I liked him.
Pastor Kanye.
Pastor Kanye, yeah, old Kanye. Old Kanye for sure. I know some Post Malone. Like some 21 Savage, like he was my dude. And I'm like, bro, what? Because I look back on it, and I realized I was feeding my mind something not honoring of God. So then, how could I honor God, right? It depends. And I know a lot of people. I don't know. My parents would always say, like, hey, you gotta be careful, like what you put in your head or like what you watch, because like it'll affect you, and something will happen. I'm like, I'm good with that. Like I can control that. Like it doesn't affect me really. But really, once I made a shift, once I realized that shoot, this does affect me, and I started putting better music in my ears, and I started to realize that what I was feeding my brain, what I was feeding my mind, did affect me. That's when I really started to change. Where I said, okay, I guess I can listen to some worship music, now and then. And then from there, I was like, okay, I'll worship music like every day. That's cool. And like it doesn't have to be worship music necessarily, but just something, I don't know. Take steps. You gotta be careful what you feed your brain. And for me, that was music. Maybe for you, it's not music. I don't know. Also, the relationships I was engaged in. Sometimes I realized that I was trying to fill a void in my heart only Jesus could, with like girls or with relationships, with love, I have all love for those girls, like much love to them. God bless them. But like they're not Jesus, right? They couldn't fill my heart with the love Jesus could provide. And I had to realize that. I had to sacrifice that. And really surrender to Him and make Him number one, not the girls. So I think in Psalm 95:6, it's really symbolic that worship, that David relates worship to bowing down and kneeling before the Lord, our Maker, and surrendering to Him. And then in a few chapters after that, Psalms 102, he says, worship the Lord with gladness. Come before Him singing with joy. But a few chapters before that, I just talked about bowing down. So sometimes it's a process, right? We first have to surrender to Him. And then we could come in and say, you know what? I'm glad. I'm cool. My heart's filled with joy because I'm surrendering to the Lord. I'm making him number one. Nothing else, and I'm good. So having my heart, mind, and soul align with that is really important. Because what I feed my mind, what I feed my heart, what I let affect my heart, what I let affect my soul, is really key in worship, because if that's in alignment with what God wants, in his direction, in his teachings, then I will have a spring in my step. I'm going to have a joy in my heart, because I'm not going to have to worry about not being satisfied by someone else. Because the Lord will always satisfy. So, what I want you to take away, my takeaway, you can find a window to worship God wherever you are and in whatever you're doing. So I don't care, man. I don't care if you're going to buy some J's at the mall. Go worship God in that somehow. Maybe by not buying them. You know, I don't know. Maybe, you know, you're an artist, or you're a dancer, or like movies, or I don't know, you're an athlete. You know, find a window there to worship God. Say, I'm going to give my talents, give my efforts, give my gifts to you, let you use them. I'm going to dance practice, and I'm going to worship you right now. You know? So you can find pockets, you can find windows to worship God wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Brush your teeth with gladness, shower with some holy worship, I don't know. You know, scrub a dub, and praise the Lord, and see what happens, see what he'll do. And understand that
Amen.
there will be a real spring in your step and a real joy in your heart that only Jesus can fill. And you won't even have to eat it. Just to ease your life. You'll be more satisfied, because Jesus will always be fulfilled. And with that said, let's close in prayer. Dear Lord, I thank you for this day. I thank you for the people in this room. I thank you. We're all here safe, Lord. I pray that we can put you number one, Lord, that we can get our mind, our soul, and our hearts aligned with you and what you want for us